that the people of Israel are indeed holy, the Bible is holy, but everyone can interpret it according to his understanding. Whilst the basis of the Torah is the opposite. To explain this more deeply, as I was doing yesterday, we go to the first revelation of Hashem on the mountain of Sinai, which was to Moshe, who had not previously heard the voice of God. And it was at the place of Sinai, by the burning bush, that he was first addressed by Hashem. And if you look in chapter 3 of Shemot, where in verse 3 Moshe saw the thorn bush burning, but the fire did not destroy the thorn bush. And it says, verse 4, when God saw that he turned aside to see, God called him from the midst of the thorn bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. He said, here I am. So he said to him, do not come near to here. Al tikrab halom. Take your shoes off your feet, for the place in which you are standing is ground with the holy destiny. So, here I'll bring also, this is a description of Rav Hirsch. She says that this, instead of attempting to understand a phenomena which is beyond your way of thinking, think of the destiny of the ground on which you're already standing and devote yourself to it with all your heart. Removal of one's shoes expresses total commitment to the significance of a given place. Similarly, the Kohanim in the temple and the sanctuary were obligated to serve barefoot. Nothing was allowed to intervene between their feet and the ground, or between their hands and the vessel which they were serving, between their bodies and the garments of the priests. The sanctuary is not an outwardly impressive order display, but the serve of the sanctuary will attach ourselves to it. So, to understand this, it's easier. I'm going to skip a little bit, because then Hashem gave the message that He's going to create supernatural ways of destroying the Egyptian enslavement, and He's going to free the people of Israel. So Moshe says, what name shall I come? He said in verse 13, he said to God, lo, when I come to the children of Israel, say to the God of your fathers has sent me to you. What is his name? What shall I say to them? What is a name? So it's all interrelated with this question. God, after all, is everywhere. He constantly creates everything in the world. What's the significance of a special place? Let's try to understand that as well. What does it mean that the land is holy? This particular piece of land on the Sinai mountain with the burning bush was holy. And the rest of the world is not holy. What does all this mean? I think the best way to understand it is on the basis of what do we mean by a name. The Shem is related to Sham, derived from Shum, which means to assess things. It's an intellectual place, the category to which something belongs. Just like we say Sham, there. we are defining a certain place in the world of space. So the word shame, which is the same basic root, means we are dedicating a certain place in the mind, giving things a name, in the realm of our thoughts. So, he says, what is the name of Hashem? So Hashem answered, I am that I am. And that's what you should say to it, I am. Or I shall be that which I wish to be. He said, our whole conception of God is based upon the names of God. But the name of something is how we understand it. What do we mean by God? Everything God reveals about himself is intended for our ears to understand it. The names which we refer to him reflect our conception of his attitude towards us, our relationship with him. Only our relationship with God causes to action is known God's name. But with God's name, to know it means to recognize that we are the creatures of God who constantly gives us extra life and extra thought and extra understanding. But really to understand it, we have to say like this: all other things and beings are what they have to be. Their existence is bound up with the will of the one who alone can say I am, and also I shall be what I wish to be. This expresses the absolutely free nature of God. God does not say here I am, but I shall be. He stresses the future is completely dependent on his will and is free of any other dependence. So non-Jewish thought conceives of God as at most the cause of the physical existence of the world, ever since it came to existence. Even when this thought rises above viewing God as part of the world, immanence, and recognizes existence beyond the world called transcendence, it still limits God's work to the past. At one single moment, God was in touch with the world, the moment in which the world was brought from the potential, God's power or will, into the actual existence. From that moment, according to this view, God's work, the world was completed. Everything, either was distant future, is simply the necessary result of the general order that is printed on the world when it was founded. I'm going to put this in a simpler form. The most beautiful introduction to Judaism in top American novelist style was produced by some who think one of the greatest recent novelists in the English language in the world, called Herman Wood, who became a Baal Teshuva. Although he was young, he was sent to religious Sunday schools where they learned Torah, and he describes in his book, This Is My God, which is a very good introduction to someone whose basic real education has been American schooling. So he says there, perhaps it would appear that was one of the reasons he left Judaism for a few years until he came back and became more mature. So there he says, well, our teacher taught us that God is the first cause. Because if you took everything in the world, it's caused by something else. The question, what's the first cause? And the truth is, this is the conclusion of nearly all the objective scientists and philosophers from the beginning of investigation. There's Aristotle and the Greek philosophers until today. They know that you can only explain things by being the first cause. For example, some reckon him as the greatest mind in the world of science, philosophy of science, also today, is Steve Hawkins. So in his famous books he writes, science tries to understand the mind of God. And then he says, we know that the whole of the world, all the phenomena of nature, they're based upon matter. Matter in turn is based upon energy. And energy is based upon the basic forces. There are 4 basic forces, it says, according to modern science. And we've got to find out the great universal principle that harmonizes all these. So, of course, the question asked, in fact, another dawn of advanced physics. It's a traditional Jew, a friend of mine. So I asked him, you should explain to better in his language, explain to him that what do you mean the great universal principle? That's the mind of God, that's God himself. And he shows his power through all the different forces in the universe. It's the 4 forces. The 4 forces produce the different energies. The energies produce the different atomic structure, which in turn produces the appearance of a solid world. So the solid world, also liquid world, also gaseous world. In any case, so this Hermann Hooke had many. He said, okay, so who caused God? If you say everything got the first cause, so who caused God? And his teacher couldn't reply. So what we've just explained, this is the answer to it. It's a simple answer, but it often eludes even great philosophers. As I myself found out by having debates with some of the people who are regarded as the greatest teachers of philosophy of their time. So he said like this: transcendence means really the power of God is beyond the mind of man. So Aristotle also agreed to this, and so do most of the scientists, but they say that was God created the world, okay? You believe in designing his universe, God created it. But once he created it, there's the law of nature, and everything follows the laws of nature, which include the law of causality. So the real significance of transcendence is in this phrase, I am that I am. Everything in the world, as we know today, better than previous ages, is relative. In other words, because the laws of causality and relationship between different situations, especially between the observer and that which he observes, everything is relative. Therefore, if we think we're still in this room, it's in relationship to the room, we're sitting still. In relationship to the surface of the earth on which this building stands, that is going at enormous speed. On its axis even. We don't feel it, just like a person in a supersonic aeroplane. And he sits and looks out of the window. He says, well, I'm sitting still, and the houses and the trees and the rivers and the valleys and the forests, they're the ones that are moving. So it's all relative. So that applies to all things in the world. Everything is relative. That's the concept of Shem. Shem is estimate, where does it belong? But God creates relativity. God creates time, he creates space, therefore he himself is beyond time and space. And similarly also is beyond matter. And if you're not beyond matter, it's beyond the forces, beyond the energies. Therefore he is the one who reproduces the different energies of the universe, including the principle of space and time, the space and time continuum, as well as causality. He creates causality. But the truth is, he can act without causality. And he acts constantly without causality, and he demonstrated this with the Exodus from Egypt. Because there things happened which were such catastrophes that the totality of the impression was that there is Hashem Hu Elohim, not only Elohim, which means there is a certain power in nature which demonstrates a power of a mind above the mind of man, but there's a realm of supernature. There is Hashem. Hashem is the one who causes everything to exist at any moment. That's the meaning of I am that I am. Hashem, by definition, is absolute. He's absolute also in his freedom to change the world any minute, anything in the world. That's what he describes him. according to this worldview of which we've discussed, everything follows unchanging fixed laws which at most once originate from immense power of a higher source. That is how the scientific philosophers of all times regard the power of God. Hence only man with his apparently free powers of action can fashion new future, according to some, and others say no, man also is not free. But how can it be that God and the world are bound and man is free? To save the honor of unfree bound God, this view is forced to deny the freedom of man. Therefore say man thinks he's free, but is not really free. And this is a regular dilemma with all the philosophers. They say, man is surely not free at all, because he's part of nature. And the nature was made by God, the nature is unchangeable, the laws of nature carry on. Okay, if you look at the microcosm, there's a certain random element according to modern philosophy which explains certain tricks that seem to take place from time to time which can't easily be explained. But still, on the whole, we follow the principle of causality. What's an halacha? We follow the principle of causality. We say the world, olam kimim lakonoge. When it comes to halacha, we don't say, well, person, this is in court, and he shot a missile at someone and killed him. He'll say, what do you mean? If, in fact, the Middle Age, they debated this a lot. They said, well, if God is the cause of everything, and human beings also don't really have freedom, because if we're going to say God can change the world at any moment, so therefore, how is it that I should be considered a murderer if I went so shot the missile and killed somebody? If God doesn't want it to happen, He won't let it happen. If you say that God is completely free, can change things at will. So we say the human being is also following the law of causality, even halacha also. You'll say a person can't say, well, since God can change everything, and I believe that God can change everything in a minute, therefore why should I be responsible for shooting? If God doesn't want that person to be killed, He would have made sure that my missile doesn't hit its target, even though we've used the most modern methods, which it should follow automatically that it should hit its target. So to save the honor of unfree God, they say, well, man is not free. But and that's, let's say, and when I had a debate with the person in England who was considered one of the world's greatest philosophers, and he got very angry with me because I kept on asking me questions in his lecture, and also why do I come to the lecture with a skull cap? So when I said to him, well, listen, why should you get angry? According to you, I'm not a free individual. I can't do anything with my own free will. You deny free will to the human being. So therefore you can't blame me for anything. And he got more angry. I said, why did you get more angry? According to your philosophy, and I can see your philosophy doesn't work in practice. Anyway, more that he didn't want to speak to me anymore. Anyway, so this freedom, definite reality that every human being knows is free inside. This contradicts the pagan view of the world and of modern science of God. It is therefore passed off as a delusion. Man is not free. What he imagined his own free decisions, but the unconscious effects of influence rooted in the rising from his past. And so in heaven, on earth, in the very expanse universe, there's no one who's going to say, I shall be. But God, we say, is above all this. And God has put the spark of His own self into the human being. That's concept of Selim Elohim. So therefore, this whole concept is that God is not subject to time and space and matter. And He's also not therefore subject to energies. He's therefore also not subject to any of the laws of nature, because He's the one who constantly produces nature according to His will. And He's also given the human being a spark of that spirituality, which is the soul, the divine image. That's Eya She'eya. So this is one of the places where we find this concept expressed so clearly. So from here, let us go then to the situation of the choice of Israel. You know, the choice of Israel, that we are special people, is a riddle. It did not fit in with any of the apparent laws of history. You want to follow cause and effect. You can't explain the existence of Jewish people. The greatest Gentile historian of recent times is Arnold Toynbee. And he tried to find patterns in history. And did indeed find patterns, and it's very nice, everything, but he came to a stop when it came to Jewish people. They don't fit in with any patterns. So therefore, sometimes he praised the Jewish people for their high level in the world history of their power of survival through the power of their spirit. And sometimes he just expresses even hatred of the Jewish people. He can't stand them. Because they're an enigma. If you want to understand the roots, understand that's the enigma. Where does the enigma come from? You know what the sages say? It comes from this burning bush. What's the burning bush called? Snare, a thorn that pricks. Yeah, the word snare is connected with sinner, hatred. People don't like getting caught in someone's. They prick you. They prick the conscience. You know, that's true. Because what pricks the conscience? Sinai. It's called Sinai because Sinai came down to the nations of the world from the revelation of Sinai. The revelation of Sinai was such a prick in the conscience of mankind because it disturbed them. Those who did not want to follow the divine image which exists in the human soul, and they want to deny the power of the soul, they find their greatest hostility in the existence of the people of Israel. It said Amalek, who knew that this God of the people of Israel was mightier than all the gods of the Egyptians and all the different gods in the idolatrous temples, and they knew it. All the nations around knew it. As we said this morning in the Shira Tem, Shomu Ami Yirgazun, all Mogo or fake, no. They just melted. They couldn't understand what's happening. But Amalek, because of this, he hated the people of Israel. Because of what? Because they uphold Yirat Elokim, Elokim. They uphold the divine image in the human being. We've got a spark of this. And the same expression was used by Hitler. When he said, why does he hate the Jewish people so much? He says, because they have weakened the mind of mankind by introducing the conscience. And the conscience is the most important aspect of mankind. The same, you know, now when we, unfortunately, Elie Wiesel, that was Nifta, died, you know, Elie Wiesel, I knew of him also, and there's a short story happened to him. But my cousin, I have a cousin who was a social worker straight after the war, and she looked after the Buchenwald boys when they came out of Buchenwald. And amongst the Buchenwald boys was Elie Wiesel, as well as Chief Rabbi Lowe. And there were quite a few people who managed to survive, as well as Rav Menashe Klein. So there was a group there who was saved in a fantastic manner. Elie Wiesel was announced now by the whole world, the conscience of mankind. So, yeah, but still, unfortunately, the voice of the conscience is not strong enough. So, in our time, so I think if Obama, who also expressed in that manner, would really recognize that recognition of Iran's spouting of hatred and evil against the Jewish people, that is weakening the conscience of mankind. Not in the spirit of Elie Wiesel, to go and make an agreement with him, to carry on his threats, backed by more and more energy of destruction. It came out today was a heading that he has many different missiles that are available at present to destroy all the Jews of Israel. Supported in this instance by Obama and Europe. It's a very serious situation. So this is conscience. So the Jewish people, and what's the root of the hatred? The conscience. And where was the conscience developed most? Everyone agrees to some extent with the Ten Commandments. That's the conscience. So to understand this concept from Sinai. We go there to chapter 19 of Shemot. There we have a description of preparation for Sinai and the revelation. And to understand this, why is it, if you look in chapter 19, verse 12, it says, set a boundary around the people and say to them, be careful not to go up on the mountain or even touch a part of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. Let no hand touch it, for he shall be stoned to death, only thrown down. Whether it be an animal or a man, it shall not live. When the horn of dismissal will sound a long drawn-out blast, then you can ascend the mountain again. What was this mountain? What's so special? Why was it so terrible for anybody to go on the mountain when Hashem is speaking from the top of the mountain? It's called the Habbalah, what lies behind this. Emphasized in this whole introduction. The revelation only came when it was sure no one went up on the mountain. So like this. It was important that we should recognize, and the whole world has to recognize, that it was the purpose to establish historically for future generations like ours that God, as it were, remained in his place opposite the people, and his word came to the people. God was not inside them or in their midst, and his voice did not emerge from within the people. What did Korach claim? He said, all the people are holy, and God is in them, and let them take a vote who should be the leaders. That's a wrong approach, a non-Jewish approach, that the Bible is a source of inspiration for human beings, which it is, that's correct. But they assume, oh, how great is the Jewish people? How great, even they say, how great was Moses? Like I had the whole discussion, a bit of confrontation with the greatest ecologist of recent times, a professor of ecology at Berlin University. So he came here for an international conference, and previously someone had shown me an article which was produced by the scientific article Weizmann Institute, where he said Moses, he was the first one who introduced principles of ecology, all areas of agriculture and all areas of understanding the difference of keeping a balance of all the species and so on, which have only been discovered in recent times. And Moses, so many years ago, thousands of years ago, knew it all. That was in the article. So I met with him, and I asked him, point blank, because he even came to the yeshiva, I understand why soon, because I want to find out more, what are these laws, how are they explained by the sages, by the rabbis. So I introduced him a bit to the Mishnayot, the commentaries and the Gemara, on the deeper aspects of all the laws concerning mixed species and so on, and all the laws of agriculture. So asked him, can a human being have all this knowledge thousands of years ago, which only been discovered by thousands and thousands of research workers in all these different areas of the sciences? And he knew it all. How is that possible? So he said it's impossible. He couldn't have known it all. So why do you say it's Moses? So he said, well, I believe it's God. God gave this wisdom to Moses. I'm believing the process, and I think that's it. It came from God. So why didn't you write it? If I would write it, I would lose my job. They would take me away. That's not academic. They'd throw me off the university, and they wouldn't publish any of my articles and books. They'd have to say it's Moses. Anyway, that's it. We shouldn't think that this great wisdom is inside the people. They said Jewish law is the only system of laws that did not emanate from the people whose constitution it was intended to be. Judaism is the only religion, inverted commas, that did not spring from the hearts of the people who find in it a spiritual basis for their lives. It's precisely this objective quality of Jewish law, Jewish religion, that makes them unique, setting them apart clearly and distinctly from all else on earth that goes by the name of law or religion. This quality makes Jewish law the sole factor in human culture that we consider the catalyst and ultimate goal of every other manifestation of progress, whereas the law itself, the Torah, as a given absolute ideal, remains above and beyond any idea of progress. As people want to say up-to-date Judaism. If you're up-to-date Judaism, it means you try and adapt Judaism to the concepts of the non-Jewish world, different cultures. You are thereby not updating it, you're downdating it, you are degrading it. And on the contrary, all laws and all principles of life, the world has to update their principles according to the principle of Judaism. Because the principle of Judaism is the law of God. And the law of God is that which develops the conscience to the highest level. If you recognize that it is higher than the level of whatever each one of us thinks to be right and wrong. If a person thinks he can decide what's right and wrong, when God himself has said that the other way around, what we think is wrong is right, and what we think is right is wrong, then the human beings are going against the will of God. And that's it. That's why the code of the Torah includes a Noachite code for all mankind, and includes a specific code for the Kohanim, the priests, a different one for the Levim, a different one for the Israelim. And it's all graded according to the situation. What should they do to develop their particular conscience? There's a different type of code, variations for men, different one for women. Because this is how Hashem has developed the human beings to reach the highest level of sacredness, to transform their potential into actuality. It says all other religions and codes of law originate in the human mind or a given era. They express the conceptions of God, of human destiny, of man's relationship to God and his fellow man, that are held by a given society in a particular period of history. All these man-made religions and codes, like all other aspects of human civilization, science, art, morals, and manners, are subject to change in the passing of time. By their very nature and origin, they are nothing but the expression of levels reached by civilization at various stages of human development. From all this, I just want to say, Rav Hirsch is also known for his expounding and putting to practice of Torah and Derech Eretz, which some people think a synthesis between Torah and culture. So it's true, in his time, the constant motto of the assimilations in Germany, where the Jews were, on the whole, on a high intellectual level than the Gentile world, and they very much wanted to make progress in the country, especially in Germany, but also in other Western countries. And Jews were often given high positions, so they thought, we will have to make a compromise. Some of them went so far as to say, let's become Christians. But others, that they resisted, but they said, okay, we can remain Jews, but let us adapt ourselves to the present day trends, the more pure trends, the more philosophical trends, that are acceptable, that we can somehow combine with Judaism. This is the wrong concept if one studies Hirsch deeply. He said, on the contrary, he said, his concept, Torah and Derech, did use it very extensively. For example, I had many debates with experts on Hirsch on this subject. And some say, well, you start reading in the school, which he founded, where my mother's father was the president of the Hirsch Gehillah in Germany. He very much became about the shul with the writings of Rav Hirsch. So in the school, when it was Schiller's anniversary, death anniversary, they made a big celebration, celebrating Schiller. They give German culture was important, yes, because Hirsch wanted to demonstrate whatever aspect of culture you approach, You have to adapt. Since Schiller in that time was regarded as such important that he was able thereby to attract many people who were very much influenced by Kant and Schiller and Lessing and others. And they thought these great non-Jewish scholars, Goethe, I mean, there's a lot of good things in Goethe. What did he do? In all his approaches, he said, right, you can take out from them those aspects of their teaching and writings where they express admiration for the laws of the Torah. And you find it. You find it in amongst all of them. Goethe, what he wrote about Sefer Bereshit, what great power that has over people's imagination, how they can grow up to start having family values. I mean, it was a good thing. He even describes his writings, also the impact which had upon it for the educated Jewish community in Frankfurt and other places. So it made an impact upon it. So anyway, I have to stop short because I must give you some time for questions about it. I'll continue with this tomorrow also and try to bring these concepts up to today's reform movement. Any questions or comments?
I have a question about free will. Free will, as we know it, is just a choice. Your choice to do. You do it automatically. You want free pilot. You do it automatically, and from your subconscious that desires what you do. And however thoughts create us. Our thoughts create us, and our thoughts also control our lives. So we know very little about our subconscious. So if they're coming from the subconscious, the question is where do their thoughts come from to get into the subconscious?
I don't quite understand your question. You're saying, you're assuming man is free or man is not free? What do you want to say?
There's as much freedom as the Kodesh Baruch Hu gives it. But the Kodesh Baruch Hu intervene any time.
Yeah.
I get up morning and someone says, I'm going to do A, B, C. And I come to do it and it doesn't work out. I have to do B, C, A. Or whatever it works out. So where's my freedom of choice? The Kodesh Baruch Hu is controlling my life, not me.
You find that your dilemma, which you've described, is part of the description in many instances in books of the Bible, and especially with regard to the enormous revelation of Hashem's power against the power of Paro. The Rambam, he certainly took the episodes of the change in the hearts of Paro as actually having taken place. But also Paro represents the power of the evil inclination. It's similar. In other words, what he's saying is what you're saying. What happened to Paro can happen to anyone. I must say, because I hope to be able to get your cooperation to come out with this, I think one of the more recent thinkers who went to the question of the freedom of will of the human being on the deepest level in his writings, his talks, was Tesla. So he speaks about this at length. In other words, quite right. Hashem himself, you have a choice between vice and virtue, he says, which is death and life. You can choose. Every human being's got a freedom of choice, but it's different. It's different with each person, and in the person as well. It's different in all circumstances. Hashem gives you the freedom in the morning to get up and go to tefillah, and you have that resolve in mind. You're free to do it. But you might find you get out of bed and you fall. So Hashem's interfering with it. You fall, not even through a neck death. Something falls on top of you, let's say. Something falls on top of you, So it wasn't your negligence. And as a result, you can't walk. So you're going to miss the time of tefillah. In other words, life is a constant situation where human beings have freedom, but it can become limited. Hashem will limit it in different ways. A person may be a gangster, a robber, and he has the intention to go and rob a bank, and so Hashem, or as it happens, the police catch him before he can do it. They had an evil intention, but he wasn't able to fulfill it. So in life, that's life. And it goes even much further. That if a person persists in doing evil non-stop, then also the evil becomes an addiction. But let's say, person, he starts gambling. Yeah? He's free to gamble, not to gamble. So he puts on some money and so on, and he gambles. In the beginning, he's got freedom of choice. But if he persists in too much, he becomes a compulsive gambler who is really very sick. Same as the drug addict. Drug addict never gets freedom. He's got to be treated with something shock treatment. Something's weight, it's not easy. To go if someone is addicted to strong drugs, and when he's in that state, he ruins himself, he ruins his family, it's like a compulsive gambler. So that's it. You can do, Pharaoh also, Pharaoh was addicted to idolatry. Some even say, there's one opinion that says the Pharaoh of the oppression, it said he didn't know Yosef. So some say it was really the same Pharaoh. And others say, well, chronologically it's a bit difficult to explain that. So therefore it's more likely that when the Satan want to say he knew about Yosef, they knew something about Yosef. And Yosef created a certain movement within Egyptian society who began to believe in God and freedom of the individual and so on. That was also power. But he didn't want to accept it. He said, if you look in Yechezkel, how Pharaoh is described, Pharaoh of the oppression, he made himself into a god, and the Nile was a god with whom he identified himself. And that explains many things in the words of Chumash, and also what we know today of Egyptian civilization. So he went on to the Nile, and that was the way he became identified with the Nile itself. He was the god of Egypt, and even the god of the world. And as such, he went with this culture, and therefore, when this people, he hated this people. Why they hate the people? The same reason. He saw these people as unique people, and they want to spread the conscience and the voice of God. He said, this goes against all our concepts. I'm the God. So, Hashem, through all the makot, he broke his resistance, and he gave in and said, okay, I'll accept God, and I'll accept the first form of God of this people whom I'm treating as slaves. That's what comes to, I've got to let them go free. Okay, so I'll do it. And then when there was no more plague, no more gun in his back, so he went back to his old ways until it came to Makat Korach. Then he pleaded, please leave as soon as possible. So this is the situation. Freedom with each person changes. The person thinks he's free, and often he loses his freedom through persistence. That's all, through persisting of giving in to the Yetzer Hara, power of evil. Then you lose your freedom. Any other questions? Okay. So we'll continue tomorrow then first we'll study a bit more the giving of the Torah and the concept of that just like God is beyond the people, so the Torah is beyond the people. And we've got to try and reach to God and get a concept, a glimpse of the transcendental power of Hashem. And at the same time, we can do it through fulfilling the mitzvot as mitzvot, understanding this is our link with the transcendental God comes to all the mitzvot. we reach a higher level. It's easy to understand this today, even from the angle of near-death experiences. Where people do come to a planet where their minds are attached to the transcendental God. They're beyond time, space, and causality. Then they come back into this planet, into this world, which is an experience which is growing on all the time. Mankind to recognize, like one of the latest books, Proof from Heaven, by Abe Alexander, a Harvard professor of brain neurology, who opposed all the concepts of there being a different spiritual planet, but through having a near-death experience himself, having severe destruction of some parts of his brain, so he went into a coma, and then when he came out of it, he tried his best to explain what happened to him. He couldn't do it. In the end, he had to admit that he had a soul. Just like even the professor I spoke about before, when he had a near-death experience, he also changed his view. He recognized that he does have a soul. And that means it's not an illusion, that there is a God who brings a power of his own spiritual essence into the human soul.